Hi you guys, welcome back to the Needy Homesteader channel and another video in the collab brought on by my sister friend Michelle over at Big Valley Living and her 30 Days of Preparedness, which is the whole month of September, bringing you videos from different content creators here on YouTube about how they prepare and how I prepare. And we're each making you videos on preparedness from all different factions of your life. And so last week we talked about perfection being the enemy of preparedness, and I just kind of sat down and talked to you guys about being prepared for life's unpreparable events that happen and will happen. And I think, just coming from this week of heaviness, spiritual heaviness, grieving, the shock and the horror of many of us witnessing a man who was assassinated in front of us, and I speak of Charlie Kirk, and we saw the girl in the bus, and we've seen children in schools, and we have just seen so much evil, wickedness, and people losing their lives like that. There is no preparing. There is no, it's just you're here one minute and you are gone the next. As many of you know, our story of our tragedy, we were hit head on by a drunk driver in February 2021. It killed my husband. It almost killed me. It almost killed my children. And so since then, the Lord has laid it heavy on my heart regarding preparedness. And today what I want to talk to you about is the blue book that I showed you last week in my video, which is called the Folio. And you don't necessarily have to use this system, but use a system. And so what I want to talk to you about is a little bit about my experience and my story and what happened after our accident. My late husband and I always considered ourselves prepared, right? We made videos. I was very, I thought we were very ready. I thought we were very prepared. But what we were preparing for was for him and I to man the ship, for, our house to be the safe house, the house that everyone would come to and gather to in case that there was an emergency, in case of, civil unrest, in case of a lockdown, in case of course, 2021 when our accident happened, it was in the thick of, we were in the throes of COVID. So I say all that because even my pantry, and I spoke about my pantry last week, my pantry I built with me in mind, with my late husband in mind, as the navigators of that space, of that food. What I never considered was, what if it wasn't us in that room? What if it wasn't us feeding our children? And so I had built that pantry around my skills, around my way, my tools. And what we found is that after our accident, when other people had to get into my pantry to feed us, half of the stuff was useless to them because they didn't know what to do with the home canned goods. They didn't know what to do with a 5-gallon bucket of rice or flour or dried beans. So now I have a semi-homemade pantry. I talked about this last week. I will leave a link to that up here in a card so you can go back and watch that video. I'll also leave a link up in the card of my pantry tour so you can see what my pantry looks like now. And I built it, I call it a semi-homemade pantry now. I have built it so that anyone that I can think of, and I pray over my pantry, and anyone that's laying on my heart, they can come into my pantry and use the food that's in there. So another thing that I thought we were prepared for, but we were not, was what happens if one of us suddenly dies. is killed. Prior to our accident, my husband had everything in files. But he didn't have it in one place. He had a little here, he had a little there, he had some in the gun safe, like our social security cards and our birth certificates, and then he had a filing cabinet, but then he also had a little, like one of those little accordion things, and then he had some papers that were scattered in his nightstand, and there was just a little important papers and pieces of us everywhere. He knew where it all was. I know where some of them were. But he never planned what would happen if he wasn't here. So I'll just share with you a little bit about our story. After our accident, Matt was killed, and so that meant he went to the coroner. That meant he had to undergo an autopsy. They needed paperwork. They needed information on him. I was in a coma in the ICU with a 50-50 chance of survival. They had nothing on me. My children were in a totally different hospital. They had no information on them. So what ended up happening is, my sister, they finally found and figured out who my sister was, because in my phone, I never had emergency contacts or titles to people like, this is my son, this is my sister, this is my dad, this is my aunt. I didn't have any of that. I just had their names in the phone. I didn't think. So the police had to figure all that out. Of course, my phone was completely destroyed. So they had to go by Matt's phone, which was locked. So with face recognition and a password. So by the time the police, of course, had to figure out our identity, and then get next of kin called, the sheriff's department arrived at my sister's home at like 3:30 in the morning, 4 o'clock in the morning, banging on her door, waking her up. She was terrified and then devastated. And then by the time my older boys were then all contacted by her and my aunt, and they all gathered at my ex-husband's home, where he had, pot of coffee going. They had to devise a game plan. And so my sons gathered there, and then everyone gathered at the hospital that I was eventually life flighted to. And in a waiting room, my family, grieving, devastated, shocked, discombobulated. The hospital that they took me to was 3 hours away from everyone and everything. 4 hours, 4 hours. It was in Ann Arbor. They had to devise a game plan of who was going to take which task. And so, thankfully, there were no arguments. Because not every family is easy. Not every family would work smoothly together. So you have to keep that in mind. But thankfully, my family is a strong, small, powerful family, and they each took a role. They devised a plan to execute. And then they had to come up here to our house, and they had to try to find all this paperwork that the state police needed, and the sheriff's department needed, and the coroner needed, and the hospitals needed, and it was a little bit everywhere. So they ended up having to, I hate to say like ransack my house, but they had to go through everything and throw everything in a bucket. And my sister took it home, and painfully, while grieving, while praying her sister doesn't die, while grieving her brother-in-law, while worried for her niece and nephew, had to painstakingly go through every piece of paper to try to sort out what was what. It was one more task that they had on their plate that they didn't need to, because I didn't steward my information well, because I didn't have it organized, because I didn't have it in one place. Now I share my girlfriend, I won't mention her name, but she was involved in a house fire. They went to bed one night, was woken up by their teenager screaming that the house was on fire. They got up. The ceiling was already on fire, engulfed in flames. They had just enough time to grab their 2-year-old child, their 16-year-old son, head out the door. When her husband turned back around to grab the dog, who was running and terrified, he went in to get the dog and never came back out. The whole house was gone, taking with it her husband and their family dog. And so she shared with me, Heather, we were sitting out in the middle of the woods in our pajamas, bare feet, nothing, no purse, no phone, no wallet, no identification. So think of that. No birth certificates, no marriage certificates, no license, no nothing. And it was all lost. So I say that because now that I have all of my important paperwork in one area, this is grab and go. This is ready for me in case of an emergency. All I have to do is grab it. I have to keep it somewhere where it is available to me to grab. Hopefully, pray to God that I have the opportunity to do it, but it's ready to go. So I wanted to share this with you because this is an area that I didn't have in order. This is an area where, as a husband and a wife, oh, we should make a will. Yeah, one day we got to make a will. Yeah, when we're older, right? When we're older, you don't think you're young, you're strong, you're healthy. Yeah, we'll get to it. Yeah, one day we'll get to it. Yeah, we got to do that. Yeah, it's on the list. It's on the list. We put it by. And then our own personal catastrophe happened and we didn't have anything in order. No living will, no direction for my family. Who would I want my children to be with? What would I want to happen? I didn't have my finances in order. I didn't have my estate in order. My family had to figure it out. In a time of panic and grief, they had to just navigate it because I didn't steward my life well. I didn't steward my plans. I didn't steward all of the legalities. I didn't make it easy. And so I vowed when I came home that was one area that I immediately wanted to correct. So in case anything were to happen again, my family wouldn't be burdened with the task of figuring it out. Everything would just be done for them. And so I want to encourage you, if you have never talked to a financial lawyer, if you've never talked to a lawyer about getting everything in writing for a living will of what you would want done in case you were in a coma, in case you were on life support, like I was, in case you had children that had to be tended to, real estate, what do you own? My camper, my vehicles, like there were so many things. We had a truck that was totaled. We had so many things, and yet no direction for anyone on how to take care of it. So I encourage you, especially if you're married with young children at home, even if you're single with young children at home, if you've got minors, you have got to get a living will in place. You have got to give direction to your loved ones of what you want done in case you are not capable of telling people. It's so important. And you need to have your paperwork at hand so that someone now can come into my home. They know all of my loved ones know exactly what I have, where to find it, what's in it. And recently I just now put it in a fireproof case that fits perfectly in here. it is, and it's enough room for 2 of them. So if you wanted one for you and one for your husband, if you wanted your paperwork in here and then add another one for photos or anything of that nature, there is plenty of room in this bag. I will leave links to both of these down below, but what I want to do is kind of spin you around. I just want to show you what's in the Folio and how I use mine, and just to kind of give you a picture of at least what, and I will show you my filing cabinet of what we still use for the less important paperwork, but all of the important paperwork goes in here. So, all right, with that, I'm going to spin you around. So just to show you my filing cabinet. So Danny, right after we were married, sat and painfully went through all of my paperwork and just separated everything out for me so that I could easily find. We've got, he's got everything from like, you know, fixing our deck and all the papers to every single vehicle we've had, taxes, retirement, he's got everything in here. So everything is organized and easy to find. All of our tax papers are in here. So all of the important papers that I need, if at any time I was called to, you know, pull up taxes or anything like that. Okay, like dental. I've got all of my medical papers in here. I haven't added this to my portfolio yet because my file on my medical is so thick, but anything that I need to find is still in here. It's still important, it's still relevant, and it's organized. So if, you know, at the very least, get some kind of filing system for yourself where you can easily find everything that you need. I had this all like in a crate and in a broken old filing cabinet, but it was not organized. It didn't have a system. Danny has alphabetically set all this up for me, and it's easy for me, especially with my brain injuries, to navigate. This is called the Folio, and I won't overshare because I didn't clean this out for you guys, so I have all of my important paperwork in here, so I probably won't open up any of the envelopes, but I just want to show you how I have mine set up. So first and foremost, it does have a table of contents, so you can fill this out any way that you want. It also comes with stickers. Hold on, because I'm going to remove one important paperwork that I have in there. It has stickers, so anything that you want to put in here, there's lots of different subjects that touch on everything that you would need. Of course, mine are missing, the ones that I chose, but it's really nice because it gives you a lot of options. Over on this side, you have a very wide, let me see if I can just jump you down. So this gives you a lot of extra, this is not wasted space, so this is functional for you. And again, a table of contents that you can fill out the way that you want. Okay, and then we're going to get into what the actual folio looks like. The pockets in here are all different sizes, so depending on if you need a thick file or just a thin file, a small little file, everything fits in here. So this one you can see for me is birth certificates. So this one holds all of our birth certificates, including Danny's and Danny's children. I have Matt's children in here, as well as my children from my first marriage. Everybody's information is in here. I've got copies of everything, including my mother's birth certificate, her death certificates, all of it. Everything is in here. Matt's death certificates are in here. Everything that's important as far as that goes is in this pocket. The second pocket is for car titles and registrations. This also includes the camper that I have. So any important information like that as far as titles and registrations go in here. In this pocket is my living will, along with my regular will, my estate planning and power of attorney,
and that is built with Danny as well, so his is in here as well. So any of that, in case we ever have to see, you know, what I would want or what Danny would want, God forbid, everything is in here. So my family, Danny's family, neither of them will have to worry about what our wishes were. They can find all of that in this envelope here. Now, you'll see this one is off to the side. So if you've got papers, especially a big stack that goes in this way, this makes this a lot easier. These are all official documents. So anything that doesn't fit and pertain in the other pockets go in here. Anything important, and police reports, things of that nature. I do have our accident report is in here. All of our court documents, things like that I have placed in this envelope. But again, you can use your envelopes differently in any way that you want. Now, this is the only one that I don't have filled in yet. This one's empty. These are all our medical papers. And what I really need to do is sit and go through that big stack and just take out the important ones. The ones with our initial diagnoses and our initial injuries, probably all our secondary surgeries, and then anything that we are dealing with now. The kids, of course, are fully healed, although Mina still struggles with her neck. She also might have to have plastic surgery on her face. That's later to be determined. Mason is fully healed. We had to have an emergency surgery to take out the rod that was in his arm because it was growing out of his arm. And so but all of those kind of papers I want to put in here, and then all the extras, like all the updates are as we were slowly healing. I mean, I have, you know, 4.5 years of like dental, like all of it in there. I just want the final finished reports in here. I just need to sort through that, but this is the only one that's empty. In here, I keep all the insurance. So car insurance, house insurance, camper insurance, our AAA insurance. I keep things for HSLDA for our homeschool, lawyers and all of that. So all of that goes in here. And then I've got some little ones. Now, I haven't used all my little, because I don't have a whole lot of little paperwork. In this one, this is all our Social Security cards. And I've also included some of the smaller birth certificates in here. My birth certificate is a small one. So I have those in here too because they're tiny. So all of that is in here. This holds our passports. And then I think that's it. So in this portfolio, you also get another section with 2 smaller envelopes. I want to put the certificates in here for my jewelry and also the insurance that I have on my jewelry. And I thought I would use one envelope for that. And then the envelope number 10 that I haven't used yet, I'm not really sure, but I do have an extra envelope in case I want to use it down the road. But that's what I have in my folio as it builds and as it grows. But I really do want to keep this easy, streamlined, so that if my family has to navigate it, it's not overwhelming. Unlike maybe my filing cabinet, which would be a little overwhelming for somebody. This, I want it to be very, very easy. If they have to take this to a hospital, if they have to take this to a police station, if they have to take it to a courthouse, I want everything in here to be very easy to navigate. So I try to keep all of the fluff out of this one and all the extras in the filing cabinet, if that makes sense.
So, like I said, I found recently a bag, and this is a fireproof bag. It keeps for up to 2,000 degrees, and so it fits. The dimensions were spot on, which is why I bought it, because it fits the folio perfectly. And then it has a double zipper. And then, if you can see where it comes together, you can put a lock right there. So you can lock it. And then it's got a flap that comes over and velcros down. It's got a handle. It's got a carrying strap. And this can be completely locked, and we keep it right here at the desk, easy to grab in case of a fire. It's not hard to find. It's right here, right at the edge of my desk on the floor. Literally grab it and go. You could keep it next to your nightstand, anywhere where you could grab and go. Put it by your bedroom door. Make it easy in case of an emergency, in case of a fire, like my girlfriend who didn't even have time to grab their shoes or slippers. This I would want to grab. So what I do want to add to this is a lump of money, so that if an emergency happens, whoever has that folio not only has all the paperwork, but they have cash on hand. The one thing I also regret is not having money out available. We had money in our safe, but nobody had the combo to the safe. And I think that's what I might add to that 4th pocket. So I think that's exactly what I'm going to add to that 10th pocket. I'm going to add our passwords book that holds all of our passwords to all of our bank accounts, our credit cards, all of our social media, all of that, along with our safe password, the numbers. I will put a key, an extra key to the safe in there. And I want to put cash. My sister did not have any cash. She took on my kids and didn't have any money. Luckily, thankfully, I have the most incredible group of girlfriends that just poured money over her to take care of the kids, and gift cards and cash, like any way that they could. They Venmo'd, they PayPal, so that she had money to be able to buy them. They left the hospital with nothing. All of their clothing was cut off of them, so they legit left the hospital in gowns. So my sister had money to go buy them clothing, to buy them food, to pay for all of their pharmacy needs, their medical needs. They had medications, they had an inhaler, they had so much. And my family did such an incredible job. And I'm thankful that they had the means to do all of that. But a lot of people don't have the financial means to do it. And I would never want to burden my family again with having to have the financial means to do that. I want everything together for them so that they are prepared and they are wanting for nothing. So that at a time of high stress, high anxiety, high grief, like it makes me so emotional to think what they endured. And most of it, I could have lifted the burden. I could have lifted the burden for them had I stewarded my things better. Had I been better prepared. This was a hole in my life that I didn't even know that I had, that Matt didn't know that we had, and now I have corrected it. And it has brought me such a sense of peace, a sense of empowerment. I know that in case that there's ever another emergency, that I have my house in order. I have my house in order. So if I can encourage you today to get your house in order as far as your finances, as far as your paperwork, as far as all your important documents, and get it into a place where it's easy to access and easy to grab. Because in case of a house fire, my girlfriend was left she couldn't receive help because first she had to apply. She didn't have a marriage certificate. She didn't have a birth certificate. She didn't have a social security card. She had nothing. She didn't have no driver's license. She had nothing. She had to painstakingly go through that entire process and gather all that information and wait for the system to be able to get her that information and fill out all the paperwork in a time of great, heavy grieving. She had to navigate that. If you are prepared and unfortunately unable to grab your case and go, so be it. But what if you could? What if you did? What if you didn't have to navigate all of that in a time of crisis and pain and suffering and sorrow? All that stuff was on you, could lighten your load just by being better prepared. So my hope in this video on preparedness here in September, the month of preparedness, I hope this resonates with you. I hope it blesses your life in some way. I hope I've been able to, at least with my own experience, help you maybe think of things that you didn't think of, things that I didn't think of, and until I lived it. And now I know, and now I'm able to correct it so it never happens again. Or at least I pray it doesn't, and I pray that I'm better prepared for it. So with that, God bless. I will see you next Sunday. I think next Sunday we are going to talk about, I had a lot of questions about my pantry and how you start. How do you start a pantry? So it's been quite a few years. I want to say maybe 7 years since I've talked about how I started my from scratch pantry. So I think I will go over that with you for those of you who are interested in starting a pantry, never had a pantry before. I had never had a pantry before. And so I will share with you my list of how I got started, the things that I moved out of my pantry and things that I moved into my pantry to get it started, in hopes that maybe it'll help you. So I think that'll be my next video. But if you have any questions for me, leave them down below and I will try my very best to answer them. And I just thank you so much for being here. I thank you so much for being invested in Michelle's collaboration with all these other great content creators that are here just sharing their stories and what has helped them navigate preparedness better, which is, you know, basically stewarding our lives well, to make the hard times a little bit easier to navigate. And I hope that this collaboration is blessing you. Thanks for being here. Thanks for participating. And I'll be seeing you next Sunday. All right. God bless you guys. See ya.